First of all, just say yes to something. You've been asked to do something and you told yourself that you were not qualified, but somebody asked you to do it. So they saw your qualification and you didn't trust it. You have to sometimes say yes to find your talents. And I think this is why it's very specific in the scriptures that we are given different fruits of the Spirit, but you don't
Hmm.
always know what yours are until you're thrust into it. And I will give you a perfect example. So, one of my friends that I know through the auctioneer world, because I'm also a licensed auctioneer, he retired from his former life and decided to become an auctioneer, but he had no public speaking abilities and no
Wow. Okay.
no idea how to figure it out, but he knew he had to achieve it to go do this new task that he'd set for himself. So he went to church and he got signed up for the prison ministry. And I said, "You did what?" And he said, "I signed up for the prison ministry because if I have to go present a message in the prison, I have a captive audience."
You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Leigh Brown, welcome to our 5 a.m. community.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We'll start out with the real estate because you were recently named president of something, correct?
Well, I was the North Carolina Realtors president in 2023, and that was a huge
Gotcha.
honor to get to serve my entire state, all 100 counties, and 57,000 realtor professionals. There's just something really special about serving the place that you call home. And my family's been in North Carolina since the 1700s, and I love where I live. And when you get to see people in their home communities and then their professional life is one that's truly made up of service, you get back more than you give, just like any other volunteer job.
Yes. Wow, that's an amazing answer because I love history and I love finding out about generational groups of people. And so for your family to be in North Carolina since the 1700s, I mean, that's worth a few accolades and handshakes. What does that do for maybe the ownership in community and the desire to continue to build on what previous generations have done?
Well, I think first of all, it makes me kind of hard headed because I'm a member of
Uh-huh.
the Daughters of the American Revolution. And in all four branches of my family, I have a patriot. So my mom's maternal and paternal side, and my dad's
Okay.
maternal and paternal. So I've got
Wow.
hard headed patriots who fought to get this country free from
Wow.
England in the war. It's just pretty fascinating to me.
Mhm.
And as somebody who does real estate now, North Carolina has changed so much. We're barely Southern in some places now because of the influx of people from all over the country and all over the world, which makes me a little bit of a, "You're from here? Tell me more." So people are very excited to meet a local. And then I get to tell them what it means to be a North Carolinian and how deep our roots go as one of the original colonies and how
Right.
beautiful our geography is and our climate is and just what a favorable place this is that God has
Mhm.
anointed. And to help people get a home here is more than just the buying and selling of real estate. And in fact, it's the one thing people never really grasp about houses, Michael, is that they're not just a huge financial commitment, it's an emotional commitment because you're going to send your kids to school in this community. You're going to find a faith home in this community. You're going to go out and dig in the dirt and go to the grocery store and interact with people. The house is just one piece of what you're buying. And when people grasp that, then real estate looks entirely different than they thought it was going to. And then you really find out what home means.
Yes. Well, and I love places that have history. I love old houses that have seen renovations or care and concern and maintenance. And it has been said $100 of maintenance is worth far more than the $1,000 in repair that comes up
Yes.
afterwards. So I want to ask you then just some of those family links to the past of the area, let's say, that you're in North Carolina, is that where those settlers would have first come, or did your family kind of branch out a little bit?
Well, they came here from Germany, Italy, and Wales are the three countries that were the
Okay.
originating settlers that came in. We've tracked them back to the on our family tree. We've done all the ancestry.com and we have all the trees and the books. And we
Hmm.
can get back into the 1600s in the original European countries. Most of them crossed over between Maryland and Virginia, and then they came to this part and stayed. And when you start paying attention to those things,
Hmm.
you have to realize what a leap of faith that was to
Yes.
get on a boat, a little crazy small wooden boat with no guarantee of survival,
Hmm.
to go across an ocean where you had no sense of direction. You're just kind of
Yes.
hoping you're going to hit land one day, and you've got your family and everything that you call your own in life, because people didn't have stuff back then. You had a plate and
Hmm.
your tunic. And so you have these tiny, precious things. You have your family take that huge risk just to come find a place to worship freely, to
Yeah.
find a place to make a little garden plot that is yours and doesn't belong to the noble up the hill.
Yes. Right.
It's astonishing, and I really don't know that we spend enough time explaining that to this young generation, because they're very spoiled, that
Yes.
they don't grasp that our pioneer founding families took life and limb in hand just for the right to worship how they wanted to worship, because that was the overriding reason people took that trip. It's
Mhm.
wild.
It is really something to think that they were willing to give up so much for future generations. And sometimes we can't think, like, we're programmed to think in like 4-year election cycles or housing markets or boom and bust cycles. But
Yeah,
what
I mean, you're thinking
was
too big, Michael. I think we think in 2-second cycles with a notification, but
that's true.
I don't know how fast you want to go down the rabbit hole. But right now, we live in a world where the next generation is treated as disposable. We've
Yes.
trained young people to throw away life in
Hmm.
exchange for the immediate gratification of a telephone, instead of thinking about what could lie ahead. What is the big dream? How do I
Yeah.
build a life that I can then create a family? And those children are so valuable that I want to create something for them to inherit. We've got to start
Yes.
thinking beyond ourselves,
Yes.
but that requires not being narcissistic, and that's kind of hard right now.
Hey, 5 a.m. friends, we're on a mission to bring these transformative conversations to a greater audience through more FM radio, cable TV, and Roku TV, and we need your help to make that happen. We're looking to raise $4,700 to expand our reach and impact more lives with these powerful morning momentum conversations. If you've found value in our discussions, please consider supporting this expansion at buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast. That's the number 5am podcast. Your contribution helps us create more content, improve our production quality, and build a stronger community of early risers committed to growth and encouragement. Every dollar brings us closer to our goal. Thanks for being part of this journey. Together, we're changing lives one morning momentum at a time. J.D. Rockefeller, he would say that he had a 100-year plan for every dollar that he made or that his company made. And it couldn't be spent here because it's on the list for this thing 100 years down the road. And it's so we will get into the leadership part. I was just thinking some listeners might be getting a little bit of listener remorse because they were waiting for the leadership tips, but it's all part and parcel, ladies and gentlemen. And when we know where we come from, that gives us an idea of where we could be headed and where the next generations could be headed. And lately, I've been thinking a lot about generational businesses and families being able to build upon what has come before them and who's come before them. And there's that statement that we stand on the shoulders of giants. And I think about some of my own pioneer relatives that came from Prussia with nothing, like maybe some seeds, maybe some plants that they hoped they'd be able to plant when they got to this new country. And so, whereas I don't know if you want to get into this, but were there some giants maybe that set the example for your family?
Well, I think every family has them. And one of the mistakes we do make in leadership is thinking that when we talk about our mentors and our thought leaders and our icons, that they had to be Rockefeller status, but it could
Right.
just be
They
your
don't.
grandfather and
Yes.
nobody knew him but you. So,
Yeah.
a true leader, if we want to make sure our lessons are in here, understands
Yes.
where they came from. So, they do have their own foundational beliefs in place. And my foundational beliefs come from my parents, first and foremost, my dad got into real estate in 1978 because he wasn't cutting it in the corporate world and he hated it. And he landed in real estate and found a home because it's such an entrepreneurial place. It's easy to get in, but it's very hard to survive. And to watch my dad provide for his family in a commission based field is no small feat. So I watched his growth, and then I look at my mom, and my mom worked in middle management at the TV station until they did some corporate restructuring in the 80s, which was happening a lot in the savings and loan crisis. And if you're a young person, go look it up. But when
Yeah.
she got out of that position, she actually tapped into her entrepreneurial side and with a partner started a sports marketing firm and then a restaurant. And I, I was able to watch both of my parents create. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They're creating. And sometimes it's the commercial side, the money, but they're always creating opportunity. My dad was creating jobs for people. My mom was creating jobs for people. They were creating a new business in the world. And in leadership, that could be that you're creating a new opportunity in the space you're in, but it could also be you're starting from the ground up. But when you talk about those generational understandings, I think it's not that you want to stay stuck in the past,
Right.
but you want to honor what went well as you make adjustments. And I think the obvious example to everyone right now is the kerfluffle around Cracker Barrel.
Mm.
And I did not know, Michael, that the founder is still alive. He is 93 years old. And
Wow.
the guy who started the first store slash restaurant in 1969 is still here. And all I could think is after I watched that interview, why didn't that CEO go sit down with him and say, hey, we want to freshen up the brand. What do you think? He might have said, well, looking back, I wish we'd done X, Y, and Z. He may have given her some ways to adapt the
Mm.
brand, but she did not go to him as far as we know. And maybe she did,
Right.
but we don't know that she went to him. She instead went after the look of everybody else and essentially burned the brand to the ground when if you understand your roots, you figure out how to grow without ignoring them. And I think that's a huge lesson for everybody. You can change, but you can't ignore where you came from.
Right. And the value of being able to redig those wells of the success in the past. And, thinking back to it's in the name, 5 a.m. podcast, getting up early is one of those traits that we learned in our house and it stuck with me. Early bird gets the worm. I heard that a lot. And
That's a Ben Franklin saying. That's Ben Franklin.
yes, we did not have curfews. We were just told, what time you have to get up. So act accordingly, which is
That's
great.
fair.
Yes, my friends would say, "Oh, great, you don't have a curfew, is that it?" And we didn't. We had a responsibility. So there you go. Much better than a curfew is responsibility. So speaking of then early mornings, that comes alarm clocks and snooze buttons. And when many people are hitting the snooze button, other people are already up making moves. So can you describe maybe this bold leadership, what it really means to you, and how has your definition maybe changed over the years?
To me, bold leadership is about how you make choices. And it's not necessarily an idea that changes the world. It's the way that you move in the world because people see that. And I love the idea of the 5 a.m. podcast because I'm an early bird. And the reason I'm an early bird is my dad was an early bird. I've watched my dad get up before daylight forever. Well, I started getting up at 4 o'clock, frankly, after I had the kids because they're up, I'm up. You have no other time to yourself
Yes,
unless you
right.
carve it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that when I get up at 4 and I can have my coffee and I can spend time with my scriptures before anybody else wakes up, I can be really focused. And when I'm focused, I'm a better version of myself. I'm not distracted. I'm not looking at other people's reactions. And then by the time my family woke up, I'm good. I've had my run, I've had my coffee, I've had my prayer time. I can now come at the day from a place of being filled up. And to me, a bold leader is already filled up because you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have somebody come at you at some point. They're going to disagree with you. They're going to argue with you. You're going to have a mistake, a failure. Something's going to go sideways. And if
Yes.
you're on empty and something goes sideways, it can derail you completely. Well, now the world doesn't get to benefit from the ideas you're going to have and the energy that you could be bringing because you were on empty. But if you're on full, you can have a side swipe and an accident. You're like, you know
Yes.
what? It's all right. I can function and you can keep going. And so those are all the little decisions and the little choices that add up to change every outcome later in the day. And I
Hmm.
love that you mentioned the snooze button. That's probably the devil's favorite tool that he
It
ever
is. I think
invented
so.
because every time I hit it, I regret it. And I'll go out for a run and say, man, this weather is so nice and my legs feel really good today. I wish I had gone ahead and gotten up that 30 minutes earlier instead of hitting the button because I've never, ever been glad for that extra 30 minutes. But every time I have
Yes.
regretted it, and we fall into those traps. And so you teach yourself, I'm going to make a better choice. And it starts with getting up when I said I would get up because that's the first commitment you fulfilled of the day. And then you start fulfilling commitments all day, and suddenly you really stand out from the crowd. And that's really what boldness is. A bold leader is like a bolded word on a page, it stands out.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. And I know even so when I went to college, you will not sleep any better knowing this at all. But so I was living on my own and I didn't have animals to feed and we changed. And I did find that snooze button. But then I was doing the math one morning thinking I have to get up for class and it's like that snooze button goes for 9 minutes. So if I hit it 3 times, I've lost 27 minutes to the sheets and the pillow instead of getting out there and owning my day. So I wanted to ask you too, you've built your approach around the leading boldly, thinking strategically, and serving generously. I think I got that right. So can you give us this real world playbook of how do these three pillars show up maybe when the stakes are high and the pressure is on?
Well, it is an evolution because this is the version of me today is
Mm-hmm.
definitely not the version of me from 10 years ago. And 20 years ago was wildly different. I think all of us that are of a certain age wish we could go back to the younger version of ourselves and say, don't waste it. Don't squander the opportunity. Don't come off the hip so much. Don't be yelling at people. Don't be the worst version of yourself because that's a learning process. And
Yes.
so for me, my leadership style has had to be comfortable with who I am. And that
Mm-hmm.
can be tricky in a world that does not necessarily value a conservative Christian mom's mindset when I'm also leading in business. Well, none of that adds up. That's not what the world expects. Well, the version of me 20 years ago was trying very hard to be what everybody wanted me to be. And I was successful. And I have the same husband. I love him. Call him my first husband. He hates that joke, but he is. And we have these two wonderful kids. We had everything together, but I wasn't standing as tall as I could have. And I didn't know that had I stood taller as a young mom, other young moms would have been able to stand up too because they were hoping to find a place to gravitate to. Now that I am the person who can boldly stand up, do my business well, proclaim my faith, and also allow my husband to be head of the household and understand that he is our primary provider. There's people that message me and say, you said what I was wishing I could say. And I just remind them, you could say it too. And
Mm-hmm.
so the boldness is also learning how to accept who you are, accept your beliefs, and then stand on them. Well, the Bible gives us that strength. It says, on Christ the solid rock I stand. It's one of those best hymns ever, which we should
Yes.
totally mention. The old hymns need to come back because it's better than the worship music. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
and so
The
when you've
narcissistic
got what you
worship.
I mean, Jesus is not a bowl of oatmeal. I can't remember which comedian made that joke about all the songs sound the same. It's very true.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, when you start realizing that you have that foundation, I was a believer my whole life. I went to church. I knew the songs. I wasn't surrendered then. And so part of me knows that you lead differently when you're leading in the way that you think you're supposed to versus the way that he designed you. You can lead in both of them. People will follow you in both of them, but are they following the real you or are they following the you that is trying to reflect Jesus? Or Could it be both? And spoiler alert, it should be both.
Yeah.
And I would just say this to any listener or viewer, you have to give yourself the grace to receive his forgiveness, and you have to receive it and believe it too. Because I think it's easier for a lot of us to believe that Jesus forgives other people than to realize that he forgives us. Because somehow we think we've done something that doesn't match up. So we're not actually qualified for his grace, but other people are. You have to let go of all that, surrender everything to him, and then the world really opens up differently. And I'm so glad I'm not the same today as I was then.
Yeah. And a big part of that, so there's a scripture verse that I like to talk about on here of as he is, Jesus Christ, as he is, so are we in this world, which means that we too can forgive ourselves as well. And
Have
I
to.
we have to. And there's a trick to, I don't know if it's a trick, but there's a technique that we need if we forgive other people and choose to not remember their transgressions against us, we have to do the same for ourselves. And sometimes that can be very hard. Could you talk a little bit about forgiving ourselves and then kind of throwing those things that come up into that sea of forgetfulness just for to give mercy and grace to who we are as our own personal self?
Well, it's just the trick of the devil that says you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. Well, you're actually not created to be everything. You're created to be a very specific and divine purpose. Psalm 139, it says, "You are fearfully and wonderfully made." It does not say that you are made to be all things. But
Yes.
we listen to that message that says you can be everything and anything. And so then we try anything and everything. And
Yes.
then the world says, YOLO, FOMO, just try it. No big deal.
Uh-huh.
Nobody cares. And so you're like, I'll just try it this one time. And whatever it is, gossip, affairs, cussing, I mean, all the things that sneak into our lives. And then we do
Yeah.
something, our conscience hits, and we say, I maybe shouldn't have said or done that. And then the devil says, you're never going to be forgiven for that either. So you're tainted. We listen to the wrong voices. And I look at myself. I know what mistakes I've made in my life. And I won't say I'm grateful for the mistakes, but I will say I've learned from them, because what I learned is that God never promised me I wouldn't have a transgression. I'm told I won't, because there's none among us is
Hmm.
free from sin.
That's right.
Every man has sinned. And so that's normal. God says he'll see us through everything, though. And it's
Right.
everything. Well, the thing that reminds me that I can be forgiven anything is actually being a mom, because my kids we're officially eligible to be empty nesters, although we call ourselves bird launchers. One's in college and one is working. And
That's good.
to have launched birds means they're going to make their own adulting mistakes. And I would love to
Yes.
save them from those mistakes. And I can't, because it's their testimony they have to learn. And it doesn't matter what they do. I love them. It doesn't matter what mistakes they make. I love them. I wouldn't trade my kids for any other kid on the planet. Doesn't matter what they did or said, they're mine. And I think that's why we always have the reminder that it's God the Father,
Hmm.
because God the Father looks at us in that same way. It doesn't matter what you do, baby. I am here. Come on back. The prodigal son
Hmm.
story hits so hard as a parent. And when I look at my kids who make a mistake and then come hug me and I can tell them I love them anyway,
Yes.
I know that's the earthly representation that God forgives me for everything too.
Yeah. Such a great truth. So, would this be maybe this idea of forgiveness and moving on from pitfalls that we fell into or mistakes? Would this be maybe one of the biggest leadership myths that you've come across in your professional work, or is there something else?
Well, it's definitely a big one, because the world is in cancel culture mode all the time. You make one mistake today, you're branded forever with the scarlet A. I mean, Hester
Yes.
Prynne is back in vogue. You have this tainting by the world. And so our leaders are often afraid to step out of what everybody expects of them, because they don't want to get canceled. They don't want to make a mistake. And so because they won't take a step, they don't go anywhere. And when you're not going anywhere, you're not really leading, because nobody can follow you if you're not moving. Well, when you start realizing that you do need to move and you're going to make mistakes, oh, and forgiveness is involved, well, then as a leader, you will demonstrate that in the way that you treat your people. And this is one of the places I've grown the most. I mean, if you look at me as a boss 15 years ago, I expected perfection from everybody. And if you screwed up, you would hear about it and you were going to make it right and you were going to fix it and never do it again. And I was so aggressive because my expectations were way too high for humans. And
Yeah.
so they would screw up, I'd come unglued, and I had a revolving door. And it hit
Mm,
me one day because another friend of mine said to a new employee, "Oh, you won't be there long." And I heard that and said, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Nobody can work for you. You're really smart. You run a good business, but you're impossible to work for." And that hit hard. And I had to take a look at myself and how I was
mm-hmm.
leading the business because I knew it wasn't on them. It was on me because it's the culture I create as a leader. And in fact, one of the girls who's been with me for 11 years, she told me last week, she said, "You're just so different to work for now than you were then." And I said, "I'm so grateful because that version wasn't showing Jesus to the world and that version wasn't productive because
Mm-hmm.
nobody can work productively if you're walking on eggshells." So as a leader, if people are not talking to you, you better look at yourself first. It's not
Right.
necessarily that they need to go, it's that you may need to adapt your style.
Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. It's the looking for the common denominator in all of Michael's problems. Michael. That's it. I'm the common denominator in all of my
It's me.
problems. Yeah. I am once again the center of attention, even if it is because I cause all the problems. Yes.
Okay, that's hilarious. I'm stealing that just for the record. I
Oh
may give
yeah.
you credit, but that's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So, it's attention of some kind for a middle child. Well, let's put that up on the list. But I wanted to ask you then, because another component of business is the key performance indicators, KPIs, as they like to call them. And we've got ROIs, return on investment, and just a bunch of three-letter things that we'd love to sometimes maybe put in a waste bin or something. But when we do get those market shifts and things go unexpectedly into a different color ink on the ledger, what's your maybe go-to playbook for keeping the team focused and able to adapt to these unpleasant changes?
The old version of me would put the numbers up on the whiteboard, bring the team into the room because I've always been about transparency. I think it's very healthy. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say, we got to fix this. We got to fix this. We got to fix this. How are we going to do it? And with probably too aggressive an approach because we can be all hands on deck. But if we're not rowing in the same direction, it's not going to do us any good. The
Yes.
version of me now understands that people perform differently based on the environment that they're in and based on what's happening in their personal lives, in addition to the fear that they're getting from social media, the fear that they get from the media when it's the national news. And being in real estate, there are negative headlines essentially every day. Well, that can wear on an individual who's really doing the best job that they can. So I had to have a meeting with one of my people a couple of weeks ago. And if I'd done it over text, it would have been ugly and it would have ended in tears and drama because text is not about how you sent it. It's about the mood the person was in when they read it. And I think that's
Yeah.
where the misunderstandings come in. I said, "Have a nice day." She read, "Well, have a nice day." Like, well, fine. You want to fight today? And that's what can happen. And even the
Mm-hmm.
telephone, if we're talking on the phone, we're still
Yes.
distracted and we're not paying attention. So I had her come into the office and we sat down and I shared with her what was going on with performance. And I said, tell me what's changed because I'm seeing this different from you than I have in the past." And so she told me all the things I hadn't seen. And so I said, "You know what? Then let's design a plan to get to the other side of this." And for her, the plan wasn't about the metrics as much as it was about getting the time management under control because her time management had gone sideways. Well, if I had come at her with the numbers, it was never going to solve a time management issue. So I gave her a little tip that I've given to a lot of people, and I'll give it to your audience
Yes.
as well. I love, love, love colored Post-it notes, like the little neon block. You get it Office
Mm-hmm.
Depot or you get it on the Amazon. And then for the different things I have to get done, the blue ones might be for my speaking business, and the yellow ones might be for my consulting business, and the pink ones might be for my real estate business. I know what has to get done. I put one task on each one and stick them all over the whiteboard. And that's for me better than a bulleted list, because if I check something off, I still feel overwhelmed. But when I finish recording this podcast, I can pull off that Post-it note for this, crumple it up and throw it away, and it's done. And I
Yes.
can make little celebrations happen. Well, when I gave that to her, she said, "Oh, I can do that." All right. So that's step number one, is something that feels like it's doable. And
Uh-huh.
then as she implemented it, she said, I can actually see my progress. And so that kept her moving. Sometimes you have to see the steps happening to
Yes.
really get to the end of the road. And it wasn't happening for her on a notes page, which is, I think
Yeah.
everybody says they keep everything in notes. Well, it doesn't work for some people. She's
No.
kinesthetic. She needs to see it, feel it,
Yeah.
touch it. Huge change for those of y'all that are a hot mess express. Get yourself colored Post-it notes, one task per note, different colors for different blocks of things. Test it out for 30 days and then come back here to the comments and tell
Yes.
Michael what you thought, because I know it's going to work.
Absolutely. And who doesn't love the shiny objects? And in notes, everything runs together. It's all black and
Yes.
white. And it's very, it seems docile and it seems boring because it's only black and white and you have no flair and other fun things like that. You know, one of the things I made for myself many years ago was a little post-it note sticker with two tiny feet on it, and I wrote no small feats. So
I
that's
like
that.
it.
No small feats, ladies and gentlemen. Feats. There you go. My grammar is
You know,
correct.
I remember those little notes because my aunt, God rest her soul, she was very active in the pro-life movement. She would
Okay.
write a little note on those feet, and she
Okay.
stuck it on every Christmas card and every check she sent to the nieces and nephews. And when I was little, I didn't know what it meant. I'd have to ask
Okay.
my dad, and he would have
Yeah.
to say, "Here's the story, but I forgot about the feet. You just gave me a
Yes.
happy little memory
Oh,
back
that's
into a
good.
generation."
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no small feats. We can do big things. And so
Yes.
speaking then of big things and big feet as you get older, many of our listeners, maybe they've got some untapped leadership potential and skills, but they're having trouble drawing it out or accessing it. Do you have some processes or approaches to helping people unleash those leadership capabilities?
First of all, just say yes to something. You've been asked to do something and you told yourself that you were not qualified, but somebody asked you to do it. So they saw your qualification and you didn't trust it. You have to sometimes say yes to find your talents. And I think this is why it's very specific in the scriptures that we are given different fruits of the Spirit, but you don't
Hmm.
always know what yours are until you're thrust into it. And I will give you a perfect example. So, one of my friends that I know through the auctioneer world, because I'm also a licensed auctioneer, he retired from his former life and decided to become an auctioneer, but he had no public speaking abilities and no
Wow. Okay.
no idea how to figure it out, but he knew he had to achieve it to go do this new task that he'd set for himself. So he went to church and he got signed up for the prison ministry. And I said, "You did what?" And he said, "I signed up for the prison ministry because if I have to go present a message in the prison, I have a captive audience.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
matter
true.
what I say, they can't go anywhere." And he said, "And even if I screw up, I've got security."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's the most interesting public speaking path I've ever heard." And what he told me is after he went the first time, he discovered that he had a gift for connecting with these men. And so he's able to preach the gospel to men who desperately needed to hear it in one of the most biblical ministries we have, which is, of course, preaching in prison ministry. And he's become just, I mean, I can listen to him talk for days. He had the gift. It had to get out of him. And
Yeah.
so he looked for a ministry way to train it. And oh my gosh, look what God can do. It's wild and so cool.
Wow. That's great that he took the initiative to figure out a way to unstuck himself or unstick himself.
In the
There goes.
scariest way possible. I mean,
Yes.
talk about jumping, a leap of faith. That is a
Yeah.
cliff diving of faith, and it worked. God can
Yeah.
be trusted, y'all. I will just tell you, if you say yes, he'll pull you through. Just ask him for the words. He'll give them to you.
Amen. Amen to that. So when we do encounter a stuck leader or maybe a team member, as we call them these days, who's spinning their wheels, kind of stuck in the mud, what is there like? You mentioned asking questions, and I had learned that too. I have two ears and one mouth, and I need to ask questions. And you've learned it's kind of like catching flies with honey versus vinegar or a spider web. Are there some of those first really good questions to ask when instead of just throwing a rope around someone and trying to pull them out of where they're stuck? Are there some good questions and maybe a response or two that you're actually looking for?
Well, it's not always about the task at hand. I think sometimes when we're looking for questions to ask, we want to go straight for the
Hmm.
jugular and get right to the heart of the problem. What I've discovered is that people love talking about themselves. That's no great surprise to anybody
Yes.
who's been a human for more than 2 seconds. I love getting people to tell the how we met story. And so I'll ask them if they're really stuck. I'm like, "How did you meet your husband, wife, boyfriend,
Hmm.
girlfriend, whoever you're with?" Because at that point, as a leader, I should know enough about their personal life. I might not know all the details, but I should know
Hmm.
enough. Are they married or unmarried? Do they have children or no? Is it a blended family? Whatever the story is, I should have a little bit because Google, and I'm going to pay attention to their socials. How did you meet Bob? Well, just kind of out of nowhere. I'm just kind of curious. I was looking at a dating program on TV last night. How do people meet anymore? Well, then she'll start to talk about how she met Bob. And you know what happens to her defensive walls? They
Hmm.
go all the way down because that generally brings up pleasant thoughts because that's happy endorphins. And now she's talking about, oh, we were here and there was this friend and this friend and this friend, and now we're having a conversation. And then she'll say, okay, so I'm a little stuck over here. I really don't know where to find the next piece of business. Nobody's calling me back. I'm like, "Oh, well, why did Bob call you back?" Well, Bob called me back because I knew all the stats on his favorite Braves player. I'm like, all right, so if your prospect, well, do you know what they do for fun? Let's look them up. And then I'll take the prospect over to social media. And she's like, he's a Braves fan. I'm like, well, why don't you call him and ask him if he's watching the playoff numbers and just bring up the same conversation you brought up with Bob? Because as it turns out, you made your little joke earlier about how Michael is the through line
Yes.
on all the challenges in
That's
life.
right.
There's generally a through line to almost anything anymore. It might be the good benefit of people putting their entire lives on the internet. You can find
Hmm.
some through lines, but if I just said to her, "All right, let's find something you have in common with your prospect," she's going to just start floundering. Go for the relational part first, and then you start to see the
Yes.
opportunities will appear. And maybe you're the person who says, "Leigh Brown, I am not interested in somebody's personal life." Okay, great. So you go into the conversation and say, "Look, our favorite Chinese place closed down last week. Where do y'all eat Chinese?" And have somebody start sharing something they like that is unrelated to the professional space. And
Hmm.
as they start talking, you'll start to reconnect. Everything in life is about connection. And the sooner we get back to the face to face, eyeball to eyeball connections and off of these things, the
Hmm.
stronger our organizations will be.
Yes. Yes. And that reminds me of a technique I was taught of many, many years ago. I was dealing with government employees and they would have to come and we'd have to look over, let's say, our key performance indicators and other things like that. But I had been given this great piece of advice to always ask them a question about their life or what's coming up on the weekend and then store that in the vault. And next time I see them, then ask, "Hey, Greg, how did your daughter make out on her golf tournament that she was playing last weekend?" And then he's like, "Whoa, wait a second. Michael remembered something." And boy, that built a lot of bridges over the years. And you have to have actual maybe empathy or care and concern for your fellow human to know these techniques of it's actually getting to know the person and finding out what they're interested in instead of telling them that it's all about me. Like the world's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? I mean, we all love that one.
I
So,
mean, we do. And I'll just say too, if you're the person listening or watching and you think I'm not that empathetic, I don't have that bone in me.
mm,
First of all, don't make excuses for yourself. Just start doing things
mhm,
and you'll find that you have talents you didn't know about. And as you get more curious about people, they get more curious about you. Well, then they start asking you questions back, and that allows you to open up a little bit. And suddenly we have the two-way street that is the cornerstone of all good relationships.
mhm. Yes, absolutely. And so it is actually being proactive. And you are taking a lead in the relationship in saying to the other person that you matter to me,
Yes.
apart from all the labels that get stuck on us, like the Braves players, try being a White Sox fan or something like that these days. But so when we do wear these colors and team uniforms, we have to break down those barriers. And something that comes along with the barriers or like the watchful eye of, is this person going to make a mistake or going to say the wrong thing or the right thing? And so maybe our methods and leadership might shift. And if there is a leader who sees this on his team, that he's or her team, that they're putting out way too many fires, is there a way to maybe fireproof your team so that you're not having these little eruptions everywhere?
I don't think you can fireproof it, but you can fire reduce it
Fire
because
retardant.
fire retardant, because honestly, if your business is busy and growing, the fires will pop up. The question is, what do you do with them? And this is when I remember what my dad told me from day one. It's one, my dad has given me so many good little nuggets of advice. And so this is your leadership advice from Daryl Thomas. And Daryl says, it's never the person, it's always the process. And so when you have a fire, our human reaction is to find some other human to blame. It's not
Yeah.
the human, it's the process. The reason a fire erupted is because this detail was overlooked. This box didn't get checked. This phone call wasn't made. Okay, so where do we button up the process? And that's what we've done in our company for years. I have a process manual that anybody could walk in today, pick up my binder, and fairly well run the business because there's a checklist for everything. The smallest process, we have a system and it's all written down. And so if your team has an issue, say, hang on just a second. Anybody, how could we have avoided this in the process? Well, we had to have a better auto respond on the email. Shazam, we're going to edit the auto respond on the email. We've got to use for Chat GPT here. Boom, boom. You
Yes.
write it down. And then the room goes, all of the emotion goes out because you fixed it. And
Yeah.
then the grumpy pants in the room, because there's always one, says, well,
Yes.
yeah, but XXX. And you're like, okay, how do we fix that? Oh, okay, we had to throw $50 in the kitty to, okay, $50. We have to have this is how I came up at my firm with the happiness money account. We have a separate
Mm.
bank account called happiness money. And at any time it's got some money in it. Anybody in my company can tap it for any reason at all to make somebody on our client list happy. And it's generally the things that make people get their hair set on fire are little
Yeah.
things. For example,
Right.
when I sell a house, the seller took the garage door opener, the buyer doesn't
Mm.
have a button, and they're furious about it, but not because of the garage door opener. They're furious because their stress level was already here,
Yes.
and that just added to it. So if we get the angry phone call, it's, I'll get you a garage door opener within the hour. We pull money out of the account, go to Lowe's, get a universal, drive it over and hand it to them.
Uh-huh.
And they go from 60 to zero immediately because we solved it. And so when I gave my people access to the dollars to solve what they are perfectly equipped to solve, a lot of our fires went away. And so you can look at it as a process correction, but you can also look at it as a little bit of a proactive solution, because when you've got the emergency petty cash to dip into, and
Mhm.
you empower your team to do it, everything gets a little bit softer. And so we still have fires, but far less frequently than we used to.
Right. Yes. So that sounds like a question then about the team. So you can have good teams, you could maybe have good high performing teams. We talked about the needing our teams to be fire retardant. Is there another blueprint, or was this your blueprint then for building a well-oiled machine, there's not a lot of squeaks and bindings in that high performing team?
Well, I'll tell you another secret to that high performing team, and that is sometimes the leader at the top of the ladder has no business being the one making the hiring decision. And some of y'all think that you are specially equipped to read people, and you might be. But when you get into busy mode, you sometimes hire reactively, and then you wind up trying to fix a problem later. Of
Yes.
course, you've got to hire slowly and fire quickly. And if you hire slowly, you are going to get better people. But what I learned is that because of my personality, I'm quick to decide. I am a quick draw McGraw. That's not the best way to hire, as it turns out.
Yes.
So I have team members who are far more adept at asking questions and reading people and getting that first impression, because the applicant is never trying to impress my teammates like they're trying to impress me. So they get to see a different version of this person. And so when my team took over that initial interview round for whatever position we're hiring, they would report back and say, "We love this one," or "Not a
Mm,
chance." And so if my team says no, I'm a no automatically. But if my team is squealing and they love this person, I can't wait to meet them. And so
mm,
that's been a huge improvement in our retention, because they're really, really talented people who've chosen to affiliate with me. And as a leader, if you have surrounded yourself with great, talented, smart people, then your job just got infinitely easier because they want you to succeed. If your team is made up of people who just want your job and they want you to fail so they can have it,
mm,
that is
mm-hmm.
never going to work out over time.
Yes. So then about this team then, we I guess we could dig a little bit deeper, but what about then you get somebody onto the team and now you need to coach them effectively. Are there some maybe bits of advice you could give to leaders who are saying, I really like what you're saying about the hiring. Once we get them on, how do we effectively coach them and kind of help them morph into the team?
Well, hopefully you found out they were coachable during the onboarding
Yeah,
process, because
right.
one of the things I do ask in the interview when they get to me for round two, it's, how do I reward you for a job well done? And when you ask how you reward them, some people are only motivated by money. Well, that's great for a sales role because they need to sell to keep the company going. But for an
Yeah.
admin role, they shouldn't want money. The admin person is really going to want a pat on the back, some affirmation, some praise, and they're wired differently. So that's going to give me some insights right away. And then I'm going to ask them, what do you want to see in this job? Like, what do you want our team to look like with you in it? What's going to change?
Hmm.
And if they nothing changes, I love you guys exactly how you are. Well, that's not a coachable person, because they just want to sit back and do what they're told. That's not being coached, by the way, doing what you're told. That's just
Yeah.
doing. The person who says, "Well, I've really got a talent with LinkedIn." Well, then I would look at them and say, "Well, tell me more, because that is the social platform that I have not cracked the code on. I don't get it." And then they can start telling me what they know. So then my question becomes, well, can you teach that to us? A coachable person is willing to teach.
Wow,
The
that's good.
person who says, "Absolutely not. These are my trade secrets. This is my idea."
Uh,
That's not a coachable person. So it's a backdoor conversation that allows you to see, are they in an attitude of abundance or an attitude of scarcity? Because that's the difference maker.
yes. Wow. We just, in our 5 a.m. podcast episode that went out yesterday or comes out today, which is with my friend Leighton Gray, host of the Gray Matter podcast. The reason I'm doing this shameless plug is we were talking about that very thing about abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. And so good. Thank you for that opportunity to plug another episode. Always looking for those.
Blatant. Let's go back. Y'all go watch the old episode. Give it 5 stars.
I didn't even need a shoehorn for that one. So thank you very much. That
Organic,
was good.
baby.
Yes, totally. So then let's see if we can find another one. I'll have to tweak my questions for the episodes that I've already done. Man, I'm putting that one in the vault. That's good.
It's a new through line. Now you know how to design your shows, Michael. We have
That's right.
checked another process box.
We sure have. This is wonderful. Worth getting up and combing my hair this morning, as some might say. But I wanted to ask you then, leadership traits. Have you found maybe some diamonds in the rough, some exceptional leaders that were overlooked or maybe undervalued?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's a personality type that gets overlooked big time. I've done a lot of work with the DISC personality
Yes.
typing. It's very well used in the sales field. And for me personally, I'm being a bottom line, get to the point person. I'm a D. The I is what I have to morph into. The people person, because I'm in a people business, I have to at least fake it. Your S's are your nurturers, the ones who are the last to eat from the buffet and they worry about everybody else's needs before their own. And then the C's, of course, are your detail people, your engineers and accountants. The bulk of the world is S and C personality types. They're
Interesting.
nurturers or detail people. If you
Okay.
look at the stats, 30% of the public is detail oriented C, 30% is an S personality. That's more than half. And then the people and the decision makers, we just always wind up in charge because we're loud and we raise our hands and we can take the oxygen out of a room. But when I talk to S's and C's, they see the scenarios differently. That S is so concerned about people having a place to fit in. They look at things from a different point of view. And then that detail person, wildly necessary because the I personality is over here with the big giant idea. The
Hmm.
bean counter should be the one that says, let's look at the KPIs. Let's
Yes.
consider the outcomes. Have we looked at the unintended consequences? Have we looked at the 30,000-foot view? They see strategy differently. And in your board meeting, you have probably an S or a C, and they don't say very much
Mm-hmm.
unless you're watching their face. You can watch the neck get tense when they
Yeah.
want to say something, but
Right.
they don't feel they have enough space to say it. So the
Hmm.
leader that sees them in the room before a decision is made says, John, I see that you've not participated yet, but I know you always have
Mm.
something to bring. Could we take a quick coffee break? And when we come back, I'd love to hear what you think. When you provide space for
Yeah.
them to finish gathering their thoughts, because they gather more slowly because of how they're wired, it's not wrong, it's just different than. So
Yeah.
you take the coffee break, you come back. John knew he was going to be asked to give his perspective. He had a moment to gather his thoughts, and then he provides almost every time the room goes, huh, because it's a different angle. And it's the same thing with your C's, your detail oriented people.
Mm.
As a leader, if nothing else, provide space. I will just say, I think Zoom has hurt us on this, Michael, because as so many meetings have gone to Zoom, it's
Yes.
harder for a leader to read the room. It's harder for them to see the body language when somebody needs to speak but has not yet found the space. On Zoom, we're watching for the hands. Anybody else got something? Anybody else got something? All right, let's finish this meeting. We're done. And that person's over there thinking, I never had a chance. We have to give a chance to people. And maybe John doesn't want to participate. You know what? John's a grown man. He'll probably say, I'm good. Well, then you don't have to wait for him any longer, but you gave the opportunity. So
Hmm.
to find a future leader, give more opportunities.
Yes. So before I ask the next question, I should ask, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I'm very findable. You can go to leighbrown.com. That's, of course, Leigh Brown.com, which has all of my socials and all of the stuff. And then, of course, you can search for me on the social networks. I'm Leigh Thomas Brown. You stick my maiden name in there and you will find me because that's the way people knew me before I got married. And so I leave it easy for people.
Nice. That's good. And I know that I'm positive, definitely that people will want to get in touch with you and connect with you. And we had a previous guest, probably recorded with him 4 weeks ago. His episode came out recently, and he sent a message saying, well, you've got a really engaged audience because I'm getting all this traffic to my LinkedIn that I don't know where it's coming from, but your show came out on Monday, and Monday I'm getting all this traffic. So thank you, audience, for paying attention and connecting. So I wanted to ask you then, Leigh, hard truths. in business. There's things that maybe people need to hear that they don't want to hear. Is there something that when I say hard truths and we're doing a word association thing and something pops in your head, what would that one thing be?
That truth is okay. I think we're in a strange space right now in the world where we've had a lot of false teachers that tell us, you have a truth, I have a truth,
Right?
he has his own truth. That's not correct. There is one truth. There are foundational principles. There are morals that are correct and good. We do have a human conscience. We do have a human responsibility. That's okay. And you don't have to take your personal beliefs and put them on the shelf because you're at work. In fact, when you do, you're hurting the people around you because they desperately need somebody to acknowledge that certain things just are. And when things are, and you acknowledge that, now you can deal with it. You can't deal with the things that we don't acknowledge. And so in today's world, it's hard for leaders because they always take the risk of the online mob coming at them. You take the risk of being canceled. You take the risk of slander. But you know what? Taking a risk shouldn't be a bad thing for a leader. Because if you're wrong, and you might be, then be prepared to learn and be prepared to grow and to move and to pivot. And if you're right, be prepared for other people to pivot to you. And you don't really know what the outcome's going to be. So take a few more risks in life. I think that's the hard thing in today's world is risk taking. So take more risks because it'll average out, and that's not a bad thing. And I will just say that if it comes down to it, and I'm standing in front of God and I've got to justify how I behaved for the world and how I behaved for him, well, I know which list I want to be on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So true. Well, it's hard to carry on from that. That's a good final word right there. The well done, good and faithful servant. I mean, who doesn't want that? So, Leigh, I absolutely thank you so much for being here with me today for 5 a.m. podcast.
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to join you and your audience. And I'm so grateful for what you're doing out there. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Good and faithful
Yes.
servant.
Yes, thank you. I'll take it. That's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us, listening in on this conversation. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to have Leigh back for round 2 because there's still a whole bunch of questions that I could have asked, but we just run out of time. You know what I mean? We do appreciate all your support. So until next time, please seize your day, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets and all those adventures in between. I'm Michael Klassen. Before we wrap up today's conversation, I want to share an exciting opportunity with our 5 a.m. community. We're expanding our reach with more FM radio, cable TV, and Roku TV to bring these life-changing conversations to even more people seeking transformation and momentum in their lives. To make this happen, we've set a goal of raising $4,700, and we're inviting you to be part of this growth. Your support, whether it's just the price of a coffee or something more, directly impacts our ability to create more content, improve our production quality, and reach those who need these messages the most. When you support us at buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast, that's the number 5 AM podcast, you're not just donating, you're joining our builder circle, and you're helping expand this community so more people can hear these encouraging conversations. Every contribution, no matter the size, moves us closer to our goals and strengthens our community of early risers committed to personal growth and positive change. Together, we can impact thousands more with the wisdom and inspiration shared on this show. Thank you for considering a building donation today at buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast. Your support, it means the world to us. And together, we're creating and changing lives one morning momentum at a time. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.